historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them.
US-China trade war impact on global workforce. ILO Director General visits Nigeria, advocates social justice system.
We only need to look at if it is possible to have a universal wage system.
And the Nigeria Labour Congress President advocates a global wage system as states in Nigeria struggle to pay 70,000 naira national minimum wage. Hello, I am Abulu Osemwahu. Thanks for joining us on Africa Independent Television AIT. Welcome to your #1 labor program in Africa, the Tripartite, which focuses on the tripod, the worker, the employer, and the government. The Tripartite will always come to you new and fresh with information, education, and authenticity. It will interest you to also know that the Tripartite will hold on to the workers, the employers and the government, the pensioners, labor rights advocates, and the international development partners to critically dissect issues concerning child labor, labor migration, factory inspection, employment, productivity, housing, transportation, welfare, pensions, safety, and health.
The Tripartite. It's new, it's fresh, it's informative, it's educational, and it is authentic. The Tripartite holds onto the workers, the employers, the government, and the international development partners on a round table to critically dissect issues concerning employment, productivity, welfare, safety, and health. A people united can never be defeated. Join us on the Tripartite, the worker, employer, and government roundtable.
And for news shaping the world of work globally, a full-scale trade war between China and the United States is in perspective after President Donald Trump imposed 145% tariff on Chinese goods import, just as China retaliates with 125% on tariff from the USA. The result shows that trade war increased the tax burden of the downstream firms, consequently leading to an increased amount of inventory and accounts payable, as well as decrease in employment. The African Regional Organization of the International Trade Union Confederation, ITUC Africa, has reaffirmed its commitment to working closely with governments in the continent to improve the lives of workers, citizens in the continent. ITUC Africa General Secretary, Comrade Aiketo Joel Odije, made this declaration at the 15th edition of the ITUC Africa New Year School with the theme Employability, Living Wage, Peace and Economic Transformation for Social Justice in Africa. It held in Grand Bassam in Côte d'Ivoire, West Africa. The ITUC strongly believes in the need to build an Africa that works for every African and seeks collaboration with all African presidents and governments to develop strategies that enhance the lives and living conditions of the people. The ITUC says workers in Africa want to sit at the table with their government to talk about social protection, wages, health, insurance, and pensions. There is exodus of health workers in Nigeria, and the Nigerian government says 16,000 medical doctors left the country in 5 years. Nigeria's coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali Party, said the situation has brought to the fore the dire situation in the health sector in Nigeria. The minister, who himself migrated in early 1990s, said the migration of health professionals from developing countries is not new, but it has accelerated in recent years. This is because the challenges of poor remuneration, poor working conditions, lack of facilities still plague the health sector in 2025 Africa. Let me remind you that this program is a tripartite one, and so some news from employers. The Employers Association for Private Employment Agencies of Nigeria has warned job seekers against engaging with unlicensed recruiters, saying that doing so poses a threat to their safety and well-being. The association's warning came in reaction to the rescue of 7 suspected human trafficking victims in Abuja by the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. The association's president, Dr. Olufemi Ogunlowo, said unlicensed recruiters contribute to human trafficking in the country.
The Tripartite. It's new, it's fresh, it's informative, it's educational, and it is authentic. The Tripartite holds onto the workers, the employers, the government, and the international development partners on a round table to critically dissect issues concerning employment, productivity, welfare, safety, and health. A people united can never be defeated. Join us on the Tripartite, the worker, employer, and government roundtable.
US-China trade war on the global work system. What does this escalating trade conflict mean for the world economy? How much trade do they do? The trade in goods between the two economic powers added up to around $585 billion last year, though the US imported far more than China, that is $440 billion, and China, which imports just merely around $145 billion. Before we introduce our guest, what are some of the takeaways from the trade war between the United States and China? A trade war occurs when a country retaliates against another by raising import tariffs or placing other restrictions on imports. A trade war has side effects of protectionist policies and are controversial. Advocates say trade wars protect national interests and provide advantages to domestic businesses. And number 4, critics of trade war claim that they ultimately hurt local companies, consumers, and the economy. Just let us know, with all this back and forth in tariff, which sectors will be mostly affected?
Now, don't forget that Trump, in the first place, made a lot of promises pre-election. And his gamble that brought him there was America first. And the people of America felt, oh, if this man puts us first, then let's go. And he won their hearts. So as part of the institutionalization or the realization of that particular game, the bandwagon now is tariff. Using tariff to let those who don't understand to submit. And he plays it, and the world is shaking. Unfortunately, one of the things that, maybe some Americans or even Trump do not understand that is that tariff is like two-edged sword, if you like, two-headed snake. So if you throw it that way, it comes also back to you, because your population are also at risk. When that tariff is high on imports, your consumer population bears the brunt. So that's exactly what is happening. And of course, you can see what happened immediately, and the stock market, everything got up, and Americans shook. Even the economy shook. And Trump said, okay, I was just battling. Now, why is China the target? I'm sure all of us know that America is the largest economy in the world. Which one comes next? It's China. So it's a squabble. And of course, if you also look at indices, you will see In terms of economy, China is speeding to overtake America. And therefore, that particular battle, resulting in that Cold War, is there. Vehicles, cars, machinery and equipment, ICT, high tech, particularly heading towards AI, which is the contemporary, the in thing. This is where they target. And why is it targeting this? China and Asian tigers are moving strongly towards picking the whole market in terms of car manufacturing in different names. Imagine China setting up a vehicle manufacturing outfit in Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and all of that. And then in other countries, you can see them today in Nigeria. I'm sure you know that they have the G. So that is it. Now you also look at AI. China is almost taking over. And look at e-commerce, which is the in thing today, electronic commerce. You also see that the technology giants, originally owned by America, originally manned by America, namely Amazon, Apple, Google. All of these ones are America. We call them GIFA. The Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, which is now Meta, and then the only one that belongs to China is Alibaba. So, but gradually, TikTok, this has loosened in, picking up. And then, who are the owners of some of these giants now? Ownership is changing. Then there is also implications of labor. So the labor is also changing hands for those who read between the lines. So Chinese, Asian tigers are taking up that end. And in terms of high tech, you see Indians also moving high in that regard. So many of these things are sweeping off from America gradually, and the jobs are also sweeping that way. So this is where Trump is looking at.
Employment, job, and small and medium scale enterprises are affected. What should labor leaders do, or labor unions do in this regard?
If AI is coming in, can we also be made relevant as well? Can we also be institutionalized as part of the system that brings in AI and will be in control and management of the AI systems as well? Two is, would the labor leaders also sit back and know where they are supposed to bring themselves in terms of job creation, in terms of the labor aspects and the nexus between development and trade, and where labor now sits in the middle. And by this I mean, it is straight true that many people may be aging towards losing their jobs. But it's also important that labor should realize that contemporary dynamics must also change in terms of capacity of the workers themselves.
We know the 14% tariff slam on Nigeria by Donald Trump administration. How should Nigeria handle that? We know very well that there are already concerns about 2025 budget.
If there's any time the Nigerian government should have been prepared for this, it was yesterday and not today. And I say this very unequivocally, that we needed to have seen this coming. We've been benefiting from America over time, over 25 years. AGOA, the American Army, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which is a trade preference given by the United States unilaterally to African countries. It has been there for almost 25 years, since 2000. Now, we need to ask ourselves, what has Nigeria benefited from that since 25 years? What preparations have we made to also benefit from that? Small countries like Lesotho, Madagascar, Tanzania. Look at Ghana behind us here. Kenya, Ethiopia. In fact, Ethiopia came out with the statistics today. They had already parceled and packaged themselves to benefit 7 billion from whatever is happening from the US market. You know what they have done from January to this particular point we have now? 5.3 out of the 7 billion target. They've gotten 5.3 billion already. What do we have? The much of what we have to export to the United States have been oil dominant. Crude oil for that matter, not processed, not refined oil. And therefore, the little, about 4 or 5% that are non-oil exports to the US market. We need to prepare ourselves. Create some targets, number one. And don't forget that the Ethiopia that I gave example has been under tariff because they were yanked off from the AGOA. Why? Because of human rights related issues. And yet they are doing very strongly. Why are we not? And instead of concentrating, this is my own suggestion, my own opinion. Instead of concentrating on these large elephant projects of Lagos, Calabar, what has happened to our rail? That the past administration, we said they did nothing. But okay, at least in the rail sector, we can see 1 or 2 things that they started doing. Why don't you pick it up and pump it so that goods, because it is rail that will mobilize the redistribution of goods within. Why don't you also look at the power sector so that the small scale producers, workers that are going to be losing a lot now will now have the competence, the passion to produce more because there's an opening. Because of the dollar there, the exchange rate volatility. Now, if you export anything there, you bring in dollars. So why don't we look at that? Why don't we also look at surveillance mechanism, setting up a surveillance mechanism by the government, so that this monthly surveillance will now help the private sector to know where the markets are located, to know what the commodities are, the sectors that are required in all the things. You publish that, and then you see. Nigerians are enterprising. The Abbas of this world, the Onitsas of this world, the Lagos of this world, the Newis of this world, they are ready to produce. The Kanos of this world, they are ready to produce. And workers, laborers are there, very cheap labor.
I hope you now have an in-depth understanding of the impact of the US and China trade war. Now let's have some highlights on the visit of the ILO Director General to Nigeria. From the DG of the 180 country member International Labour Organization, and the second time the DG is visiting Nigeria. Gilbert Humbo is received by the Labour and Employment Minister Mohammed Dangiade at the ministry's office.
The declaration emphasizes the need for the democratization of the ILO's governance structures, ensuring full, equal and democratic participation of all member states.
Shortly after, the visiting ILO DG joins the UN country representatives Mohammed Fall at the UN building at a conference on Global Coalition for Social Justice.
The new administration, through the Renewed Hope agenda, have taken bold initiative, bold measures. Everyone praised the courage and the boldness of the new administration on the way they tackle the economy. From every corner, people are praising the government for that one. But there is one aspect we keep advocating on, which to me is missing, which is, yes, it's good to reform. It's good to make the macroeconomic environment more conducive for growth, for economic prosperity. But before you get there, you need to give a human face to the reform. And that's something that we have been advocating. If you look at today inflation rate, if you look at today the depreciation of the currency, if you look at today the kind of food price challenge that the people are confronted with, one has to recognize that there is a need that a social dimension, that a human dimension, that a human face be included into this reform.
What we have now is to focus on very specific area, namely addressing the inequalities, addressing the discrimination and exclusion, ensuring labor rights and dignity of life.
For ITUC Africa, a new social contract is needed by the continent leaders to eliminate policy mismatch, while the organized labor launched an advocacy for global wage system.
We're in the fourth industrial revolution. Africa has not yet attained the first agrarian revolution, the second industrial revolution, the third globalization revolution, and now the digitalization revolution. But all of this does not mean we will be left behind.
Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress President, Comrade Joe Ajaero, is advocating a global wage system. Comrade Ajaero made the call at a forum on social justice at the UN building in Nigeria.
And we equally need to look at if it is possible to have a universal wage system. If we have a universal or global wage system, even if we have indices, that it is $50 or $20, and countries of the world key into it, you know where some of us are standing.
Now, here are some feedbacks from our social media handles. Thank you for investing your time with us on the program. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media handles on the Tripartite 3. Let's do this again. The Tripartite, the Worker, the Employer, and Government Roundtable. I remain your host, Abulu